Welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who wanted to do a soundtrack for this episode with a bunch of discordant musical instruments and weird dings. It's David Cross.
What's going on? My favorite musical instrument is the kazoo. Did you know that?
Yeah, and you wanted to kazoo this episode.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I know that it's a instrument that you can carry around, and some people would go with a harmonica, but I feel like kazoo is going to really surprise people around a campfire, right? You pull out a harmonica and everyone's like, oh great, but you pull out a kazoo and everyone's like, what is this guy going to do?
If you have a kazoo or if you have a harmonica in your shirt pocket, right? You better be expected to bust something great out.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be perfect at it, or don't carry it around at all.
Or if you take out a kazoo and just everyone's gonna think you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it'll be great. Get the campfire dance going.
And I was gonna do a soundtrack. We were both gonna do soundtracks for this episode, and we were hoping that our two totally different vibes would give it an eclectic vibe, much like in Ravenous. What do you think? Should we do it?
Yeah, I definitely think we should do it. The question is are you gonna use a vuvuzela? Or something else?
I'm synth all day. I'm 80s. Okay. I'll go from a Carpenter playbook and just hit synth notes. Actually, I'll just play the Tangerine Dream soundtrack from Sorcerer, Friedkin, but I'll just play that over it. What do you think?
I mean that sounds great, and I can't wait for the audience to really get into this. They'll probably stay for the whole episode.
And when you're playing your kazoo and your tuba and pans and pots over Tangerine Dream, over our dialogue, I think it's going to be interesting, right? And much like Robert Carlyle in this movie, it's probably going to chew up a lot of the sound, It's going to... yeah.
Definitely. I would say that there's one instrument I want to make sure we have on this album.
And what's that?
The wash pan.
Oh, gotta have that.
Yeah, I gotta have the wash pan solo. Zipper, 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 zipper.
Over... Yeah, so it's probably, while we're talking, I'll have that playing. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're going to hear a couple tracks doing that. Now, how did we come across this idea? Did you tell me you love this movie, or did we just come across this movie? You told me you loved it, right?
Yeah, so I pitched this movie to you because I really love this movie. And I love this movie because it is absolutely bonkers. I remember watching it for the first time and having several head grabbing moments because I was like, I can't believe this just happened on screen. What I mean by that, or at least a couple things I mean by that, is I had never seen a Western horror before when I saw this. The soundtrack is bonkers. It sometimes doesn't even go with the film. It's a horror comedy, so there's just so many things that are just head scratching, but it comes together in this beautiful, strange, unique way.
It makes me so happy. When I first heard about this movie from my brother, he sent me a message and he's like, I watched this movie called Ravenous and it was insane. He's like, there's a scene where this guy was getting licked and he's like, and the soundtrack is awesome. He loved the soundtrack. So I checked it out and I loved it. This is a quirky movie. This is an original, would you say? This is...
Yeah. There's not much out there like this that manages to be both comedic at times and really terrifying.
And the beginning is so insulting. I can't believe they added that. The studio wanted that with the quote and then the other quote.
Yeah. There's two quotes. And then it was a serious quote. And then underneath it was "Eat Me" by Anonymous, and it changed the tone of the movie. When if that wasn't there, you would think it's more serious than that sets it up to be.
Yeah, so they're basically telling the audience this is supposed to be fun, right? But it is fun. It's a fun movie. It's just this is a movie that could only be made based on the circumstances that surrounded this movie. Does that make sense?
I'm really happy you mentioned that because I feel like. So actually, let's take a step back. We should explain what happened with this movie so everyone understands. Essentially, it was being filmed, and the studio was like, we don't like the director, and they flew out there to fire the director, and they had another director in mind, and then the actors were like, we don't want the second guy, screw you. And then Robert Carlyle talked them into bringing in his close friend. Is it Andrea Bird?
Yeah, Antonia Bird.
Antonia Bird. So she came to the situation that was like, what the F is going on? And I feel like that really helped set the tone for the movie because she had 10 days to prep. She's like, I'm thrown into this. I'm going to make the most of it. This is an absurd situation. Let's make an absurd movie.
And so I've listened to all we both have the Scream Factory Blu-ray, and I listened to all 3 commentaries, and she was very reserved on the commentary, Antonia Bird, but I love some of her comments. The cinematographer, Anthony B. Richmond, flew in the night before. I guess it's good, though. I mean, this dude had worked on Don't Look Now, Candyman. And you know what's really weird? You've probably looked into this, but he went from Don't Look Now, Candyman, and Ravenous to Legally Blonde, John Tucker Must Die, Just Friends, Employee of the Month, The Rocker, Miss March, Dumb and Dumber, When Harry Met Lloyd, Dirty Dancing 2, Havana Nights. Oh, and he also shot The Sandlot. So this guy went from Sandlot, or Don't Look Now, Candyman, Sandlot, movies that had a pretty big impact, to teenager movies, which is very interesting, right? I guess he found his niche.
Yeah, that sounds like it. But before I forget, there was another reason why I wanted to do this movie.
Okay.
That was slowly my plan to get all the David Arquette's movies onto this podcast is coming true. Slowly.
So right now we have Eight-Legged Freaks, Ready to Rumble. Mm-hmm. This movie, Ravenous. You and I are gonna do Scream 4 soon.
Yep.
And we did Airheads. Holy crap, we've done a lot of Arquette movies, dude.
Yeah. And we're gonna definitely one day, I don't know when, we're gonna do 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
Oh, Kurt Russell. I'm sold. Whenever you want, my friend.
Here's the thing. I haven't seen that movie. I'm just saying that that's a David Arquette movie, and so I have to rep it.
Well, it's an Arquette Kurt Russell movie, so it's basically made for our podcast.
Yeah, the Venn diagram. I'm David Arquette, and you're Kurt Russell.
You know something interesting? In both of the commentaries on this, Antonia Bird, she was on with Damon, the other guy, Damon Albarn, and then also in the one with Robert Carlyle, they both were extremely complimentary of David Arquette in this movie.
Yeah, I noticed that too. They were basically like, he is a very talented actor. And I feel like people don't realize that now because of his career is like really tied to horror movies. He's always played this like goofy character. But every time I hear someone talk about him, they're like, no, he's very good. He just likes weird stuff.
I watched Scream, and you know when you watch certain movies and you just know a person can act. So I watched Goon with Sean William Scott, and you're like, this guy can act. You watch David Arquette, you see other actors in these movies, and you kind of get bummed that they don't not fulfill the promise, but do that in every movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you have to know how to use some of these actors. He feels like someone you can't throw him into every role. He's a light spice.
And then what I also liked about this story, the director that they had, this guy, I guess he had won an Oscar for a foreign film. His name was Milcho Manchevsky. He made the 1994 Oscar-nominated Macedonian film Before the Rain. But all right, so this is all, I get this is just word of mouth, so I don't know what the word is. There's no proof of this, but apparently he went to LA, he wanted a convertible, he didn't get it, and then he got a ton of parking tickets, and the studio wouldn't pay for them. And then he got fired. Then Antonia came in, because they wanted the Home Alone 3 director, Raja Gosnell. They brought Antonia Bird, but Antonia Bird was later quoted to say that she doesn't blame the original director all that much. She actually defended the guy, saying that he couldn't be blamed. She didn't like the bookended narration, the comic quotes. She didn't like that the studio thought the audience was stupid, so she kind of made it very Manifest Destiny. She went to Hollywood. She went Hollywood to make a movie. And it's focused in this movie, and I love it. And I don't know, I just think this movie is a product of someone coming in with 9 days of prep, a DP with 1 day to prep, committed actors who nailed their parts, and just a weird experimental score. It's just a hybrid it works, actually. It just made $2 million at the box office, which isn't good.
Yeah, but after this podcast, we're going to send it skyrocketing up the sales on Amazon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is going to be Amazon #1. iTunes isn't around anymore. Apple Movies #1. Voodoo.
Voodoo.
We're gonna make this huge.
So I actually did some research on that director, Manchevsky. Basically, he said that it was a horrible time working on the set and that he was being micromanaged by Fox 2000 and that they were vetoing his technicians. They were trying to cast parts that he didn't want. And he was saying he was having a horrible time. And it sounds to me that he was sort of relieved to be taken off the project. I'm speculated on that, but like I was reading in between the lines and I was like, maybe this wasn't for him.
Yeah, and I also love that El Nino hit Slovakia, where they were filming at times. Like they filmed overseas, and it was supposed to be incredibly snowy, but then El Nino hit, and it was really green. But then during the production, they had a massive snowstorm, so it went back to being snowy. Like this movie was attacked on all ends, I would say.
Yeah. I'm impressed that it got produced, just came out, honestly.
I mean, but I also love movies like this wouldn't get made nowadays, would they? This would go to Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'd be made, but it wouldn't get a wide release, I don't think. I mean, I say that now, but Crawl is literally in the theaters as we're speaking.
Yeah.
But this doesn't feel like one that would get made. It would be Amazon Prime, it'd be Netflix or Hulu.
If I was a studio, I would just give Alejandro Aja. Oh man, I keep doing the knowing me, knowing you from. Man, that's Steve Coogan show. But I would give him $15 million, $20 million, and just go do what you want. Because Hills Have Eyes, Piranha, the majority of his movies pull in money. Like they make about 50 to 70 worldwide. So you give them 15, you're going to make a profit, and you're going to get a funky, good movie. Yeah, Crawl?
Yeah, I mean, was Crawl Blumhouse? I don't think it was. But if you're Blumhouse, you should just be snapping up directors in that mid-range. Just you want to do something? I got money for you. Yoink.
Just, $10 million. Here you go. You'll make something good. Because that dude doesn't, I mean, Piranha was cheap. And I love it. I mean, that movie's insane. Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
Have you seen Piranha 3D?
I have not. I feel like I have because I've heard so many people talk about it, including the guys from How Did This Get Made?
Yeah. They don't want to cover it because it's a good movie. There's a lot. I
just haven't seen it.
There's a lot of eating in that movie too. But no, man, this movie though it's a funky little thing, and it has a pretty dedicated following. I wouldn't say I had Adam Clement on the pod. We were talking about The Phantom, and he wondered who watches this movie. But I think it has a dedicated following because it failed at the box office. It's misunderstood, and it's actually good.
Yeah, so I did some research into Western horror. This always comes up in the top 10, if not top 5 of the subgenre. So clearly people who are looking for this know what this film is. It's a female director doing a horror movie. So every October, this movie gets trotted out as one of the best female-directed horror movies. Guy Ritchie has a following. Arquette has a following. Like, This movie, I think, is better situated than people think it is, except it's probably not super accessible for anyone who's not a horror fan.
Right. Oh, you mean Guy Pearce?
Yes, Guy Pearce, not Guy Ritchie.
I was like, I was hoping Guy Ritchie was like a huge fan of this movie. That'd have been pretty sweet. Now, let's talk about the beginning of this film. And I love how it builds up. We learn that, Guy Pearce is in the middle of this battle. You know, the war is the Mexican-American War, which, and he is just seeing everyone getting killed around him, so he pretends to be dead. He is squashed under, what would you say, 700 pounds of bodies?
It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And blood trickles into his mouth, and he's able to lift all those bodies out of him. Then he walks into a Mexican fortification, and he snaps the dude's neck, and basically saves the day. Yeah, it's like
the most ridiculous neck snapping I've seen in movies. He just walks up and touches him, and his neck snaps.
Yeah, that thing explodes, which I love. So he wins an award, and then you go to the grossest meat scene ever, with just people shoving meat in their faces in 100-degree weather, where they shot in Mexico. And
yeah, I have a comment on